And I mean, when she says, oh, we still get a bit of action. Oh, Jesus Christ. I would expect there is nothing more frightening than a naked 96-year-old coming at you with sexual desire in her eyes and you're 100 years old. Good morning, everybody. Episode 148 of the Just Passing Through podcast. The rainy season is starting up like a crappy old car here. We've got fits and starts. Pissing it down and horrible yesterday. Glorious today. Enough for Japan. We're not going to be Asian-centric this week. We're going to go over to France. The D-Day celebrations. 80 years ago since the D-Day landings on the 6th of June. Again, I'm not going to be talking about that much. The best news story that came out of there was Rishi Sunak. For all he goes on about his national service, steps out early. To be honest, I don't think he's going to get in. But I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that this week. What I am going to talk about is this.
My God, I got butterflies just like the young people. I mean, it's not just for young people, love, you know?
Normandy is my second favorite place in the whole world. I could live here for the rest of my life and be as happy as could be.
Do you feel young again?
Oh, yeah. At 96, I feel like, my God, I got butterflies just like the young people. I mean, it's not just for young people, love, you know? We get butterflies and we get a little action also.
Un mariage que nous espérons heureux. Alors félicitations aux jeunes mariés.
The clip that you've just heard, or if you're watching on YouTube, the clip that you've just watched, are part of the D-Day celebrations. Harold Terens and Jeanne, what's her name? Swirling. Jeanne Swirling and Harold Terens. A couple from America, Harold, Jeanne. I cannot begin to put forward what are you fucking playing at? Let me explain this to you for them that don't know this story. This fella had served in Normandy. So he were there on D-Day landing. So before I even carry on with this story, you know he's knocking on a bit. And if you look at her, she's up there in the years as well. But as old as they are, they're not acting their age. They're quite sprightly, which is a feather in their cap for a pair of them. Now, he's 100 years old. So he were there doing his bit for the war effort back in 1944. She's 96. She's a 96-year-old woman. Now, Harold and Jeanne decided, yeah, fuck it, we'll get married. We'll get married. Fair enough. Just go get married. Why are you having to do it in Normandy? Why, when people are going there to remember the fallen, why is old Harold and Jeanne going there and getting married and nicking some at Limelight? Now, what you're going to hear, I'm going to pick bits out of the thing that I watched on BBC, and I'm going to break it down because there is an age gap between them. I mean, she's 4 years younger than him. It's not really going to get frowned upon, is it, really, when you're that old? And I mean, how long are you going to last, to be honest? How long are you going to last? So let's listen to the first bit.
Do you feel young again?
Oh, yeah. At 96, I feel like, my God, I got butterflies just like the young people. I mean, it's not just for young people, love, you know. We get butterflies and we get a little action also.
Right. So that's Jeanne talking about getting butterflies and marriage is not for the young uns. But the last part, for crying out loud, and we still get a bit of action. Now, the action Harold saw back in 1944 during D-Day, and the action that Harold is going to see probably about 4 or 5 hours after that interview are going to be quite similar. I mean, having to part the whiskers of a 96-year-old. I don't care if you're 100 years old. I don't care. It's going to be probably, if not worse, at least as bad as the action that he saw on the D-Day landings 80 years ago. And I mean, 80 years ago, you were a 20-year-old. You know, you're liberating all these towns and all these villages on that push to Berlin. The fact that the Fraulines, once you're crossing the Rhine and ridding the country of Nazis, how appreciative they must have been towards you during that time when you're 20 years old, a virile young man. They're coming out with flowers and they're welcoming the Yankee to the village, you know, with flowers and anything else you could wish for. You know, and then you're back 80 years later and you're marrying a 96-year-old. A 96-year-old. I think I would, all that death and devastation that we were witnessing 80 years ago, I think I'd prefer that than to what's going to be going on in bedroom that very night. I mean, you're 100 years old, you've got your wits about you, you seem to be able to get about a bit because you've obviously walked down an aisle and you've walked your wife out of a church. What are you bothering with old women for? Why would you bother getting married? And I mean, when she says, oh, and we still get a bit of action. Oh, Jesus Christ. I would expect there is nothing more frightening than a naked 96-year-old coming at you with sexual desire in her eyes and you're 100 years old, because you're not going to be able to get away from it. I mean, at 53, I can sort of sidestep it, push her on bed and just walk away. I mean, a 96-year-old on bed with Ann Summers on, you know, she's gonna take a while to get back up. And by the time she gets back up, you're out of there. But if you're 100 years old and she pushes you on bed, you're there for the duration. You're there for duration. She's pumped you up. She's pumped you up with the blue pills. She knows you've taken them. She knows you've got one in you. And she's got a little suspender belt on and she's 96 years old. The woman is 96 years old. Right, I will tell you a story. My grandmother died when I was 3 months old, so I don't know who she was. I don't remember her. It was my dad's mother. She died. Now, my granddad, that would have been 1971. My granddad remarried around 1980. So he would have been about 68, 69. So not an old man. Not at all. But he got remarried nonetheless. It would have been younger. Because he died when he was 89. He celebrated his 25th wedding anniversary before he died. So he must have got married when he was 64. So 64, that's just 11 years from now. He remarried. So he lost his wife. My grandma died when my granddad was 51. So anyway, so he remarried again. Now, the woman that he married, Mary, as my dad put it, had flattened a bit of grass in her time. My granddad were her third husband. She'd already finished 2 off before him, and before she set her sights on my granddad. Now, I remember being about 6 or 7. My granddad were looking for another woman. Now, obviously, there were no Tinder, a Grinder, I mean, who knows, back in the day. So my granddad had to go through a thing called Lonely Hearts Club, like the Beatles made famous with that album, Sgt. Pepper. So what you did with Lonely Hearts is you sent a photo in to this company. They'd read your letter, they'd print it out, and then they'd send a newsletter out to women your age in the area. Imagine that. Send your details out, and then you'd get these letters and you'd get these photographs. And I remember being sat at my granddad's house, and these letters were coming in, and quite a bundle he were getting. So it must have seemed like a bit of a catch. And when you grow up in life, it seems that widows and widowers are more in demand than somebody that's got divorced. So there he was. My granddad is this widower. He's been a widower for 8 or 9 years, and he's ready to jump back in the game. And we'd be looking through these photos, and my granddad would be going to me, "What do you think of her?" And my dad would look, and obviously my dad is picking out, really, my dad's picking out his new mum, his new stepmum. And he's going, "Dad, look, she's got a wig on." And then he'd pass it to me, and I'd be looking. I'd say, "Yeah, definite wig. So we'd be looking through these photos to get my granddad a new wife. The first time I met Mary, we'd gone round to his house, we'd met her, and then we'd gone to her house. She lived in Leeds, he lived in Bradford, and I remember her having the better house. My granddad lived in a council house in Bradford, in the same house that my dad had grown up in. And it were all right. But I remember going over to her house, and it were fantastic. It were this, I think it were her own house. She'd gone through 2 husbands. She'd been left a bit of brass, and she'd got her own house. So the second time I met her, my granddad just sort of sat us down, and Mary's there. She said, "Oh, got married. We went to the register office and we married." Me, my mum and my dad are looking at each other, going, "Ah, all right." So they'd got married. Now, Mary were not backward in coming forward about her activities in the bedroom with her other husbands. And my granddad had jumped in on it. And I remember being sat there a few months in and my granddad talking to my dad going, "Oh, yeah." And on the wedding night, he didn't know what to do with it. They were mucking about with. As a 10-year-old, you sort of knowing how the world goes on. And you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Talking about the sex when it's coming from a 70-year-old. Oof, really. Now, I'm just setting the foundations for what happened. Now, in the mid-90s, I'd got fat. And I thought, right, I've got to get this weight off. So I just started jumping on my bike, and I would do these, what I would thought back then for a fat lad who were 15.5 stone. I'd do about 30, 35 mile a night after work. I'd just go out on my bike and cycle. And for a full summer of 1994, I would just be pounding that road, and the pounds and the kilos just fell off. And where my granddad and Mary lived in Bradford were Denholm. And Denholm were one of the highest places in Bradford. And Bradford's quite a high town, so it would always get a bit snowy where they moved to. So they moved to this bungalow, this council bungalow, a really nice area. So I thought, I cycled down to Skipton, which were 15 mile. I came back on back roads. And then I come up through Keighley and into Denham. And I know this is very, very Bradford-centric, but you can find the route on Google Maps. And I cycled up to Denham. I thought, I'll go and see my granddad. Now, because I'd lost a bit of weight, I decided to buy cycling gear. So I were in Lycra and a cycling tops. And I'd lost about 2 or 3 stone. So I was quite ripped. And I went there. And Mary were there with my granddad, obviously. And Mary's sister, Millie, were there as well. Now, Mary and Millie had been farmed off to orphanages when they were younger because the parents didn't want out to do with them. They couldn't afford to raise them. So to get out of the orphanages quick, once you get to 16, you just find a fella and you pin your life on him and you're out of the children's home. And that's what the pair of them did. Obviously, Millie had finished off an husband. She'd then married a fella who lived in Rhodesia. She'd come back. She'd lived in Rhodesia, which is Zimbabwe now. Mugabe had got in, kicked her husband off his farm, and they'd come back to Bradford. And she'd finished him off in quick succession. So Millie's at my granddad's house, and I'm sat. I walk in, and I've got my gear on, and I'm sat talking to my granddad, and I'd usually stay for about an hour, but the sexual tension that were coming off of Mary's sister Millie, the way she were looking at me and eyeing me up, and a lot of fucking crotch staring, to be honest, made me so uncomfortable that I were out of the door in about 20 minutes. Yeah, I were out of the door in about 20 minutes. I couldn't stand it anymore. And the way that old Jeanne were talking about getting action just dragged me back to that day that I went to my granddad's. And Millie were there, eyeing me up, probably wanting to drag me off into the back bedroom and rip my Lycra bottoms off with her probably false teeth. Oof. And that's what dragged me back. Now, I could not imagine a couple who are combined 196-year-old going at it on the wedding night. I mean, Harold. You know, you've obviously got a bit of money behind you because you've flown your wife over to Normandy and you've got married, unless somebody's paid for it for you. You know, why aren't you getting yourself over to Southeast Asia and getting yourself... You could have a woman that were 50 years younger than you and it wouldn't seem out of place. You know, even a 50-year-old to a 100-year-old man is going to seem like getting your hands on a teenager. It must do. Everything's kind of still everything's still where it should be, I expect. But marrying somebody that's 96-year-old, I've no idea why you would do that. Now let's just go on to what Harold says about the old day. The second best place I've ever lived, Normandy. Now, I have no idea what the first place is you've lived in, Harold. I don't know, but Normandy, you've been there for the D-Day landings, which couldn't have been a picnic, and now you're there marrying a 96-year-old. Where have you been living? That's the second best place you've ever... I'd love to know where the best place you've ever lived is, because if Normandy's the second best place, where the fuck have you been living? Fucking Kabul. The second best place I've ever been, Normandy. I've been there for D-Day landings and I've married a 96-year-old. It would be the worst place I've ever lived in my life. I'm from Bradford and I've lived in some rough old places. But Normandy, I mean, I've no idea where you've lived, Harold, but it must have been a rough old life. And I've no idea how you've got to 100 if Normandy's the second best place you've ever lived. Really. Get yourself off to Thailand or Cambodia or Vietnam, where a woman is going to be at your beck and call. You know, you're bringing positivity to their life, they're bringing it to your life. And if you've got a sprightly 96-year-old, there can't be anything worse in the world than that. You know, you're just wanting to sit down in front of telly and put your balls in a comfortable place because they're getting stuck under your back of your knee. And she's just wanting to go dancing or listen to Glenn Miller or walk hand in hand on beach when she's 96. I mean, come on. And I don't know if they got invited over there by Biden. I don't know if Biden got wind of it or whatever. But they got invited back to the Élysée Palace for a celebrated dinner for Biden, not for them. So their wedding reception was they were hanging on the coattails of this Biden dinner. Now, I don't think Biden wouldn't have known what the fuck were going on. He's probably shit himself already. But then Macron does this.
Un mariage que nous espérons heureux. Alors félicitations, jeune mariée.
Un mariage que nous espérons heureux, alors felicidades aux jeunes mariés. Now, my French isn't what it should be, but roughly translated, a marriage that we hope will be happy, so congrats to the newlyweds. Now, a marriage that we hope will be happy. Now, at 100 years old and at 96 years old, how happy can you be, to be honest? It's not going to last that long, is it? You've got a couple of years at best. Now, what we've seen on that BBC clip is them at their best. You know, They're not shuffling about. I'm not seeing any walkers because they're filmed from waist up. But how good is it going to be? And then this. Now, for them listening on podcasts and not watching on YouTube, Macron gives a little bit of a wink. With Macron and his reputation for liking the older woman, you know, Harold, you need to keep an eye out on this fucker because he loves an old one. He loves an old bird, does Macron. His wife is 24 years his senior, and Macron's younger than me. His wife's 70. Macron were born in 77. So what is he, 44, 45? And his wife's pushing 70, or she might already be 70. So Macron picked her up when he were in his teens. She was his teacher. And he was just badgering her, and then he ended up banging her. She left her husband and kids for this child and married Macron. And obviously Macron's gone on and is now the president of France. But he loves an old one. Now, is he winking at Jeanne? Is he hoping that old Harold, you know, don't give him the cheeky little Bordeaux that I'm handing out for everybody and all these diggers. Give him some shit Paul Masson. Give him a California Red. So hopefully Harold will pass out. Next thing you know, the first fella from France is balls deep in a 96-year-old, which is probably his fucking dream, given his penchant for the older woman. I mean, if you're 44-year-old and you've got a chance of getting jiggy with it with somebody that's 60 years older than you, and given his track record, Harold, stay awake for as long as you can at this reception. Go easy on the booze, because it looks like the French Premier is out for a bit of is up for a bit of it from your wife. I know you're newlyweds, but he's French, you're not. He's powerful, you're not. I mean, you did your bit in Normandy, he didn't. He loves an old un, so do you. You know, keep your eye out for him. And I was just thinking of age gaps. Now, there is an 11-year gap between me and my wife. Now, she's younger, not older. I don't want to be having any part of a 64-year-old. And I would guess every 53-year-old you ask in any country, on any day of the week, any month of the year, would want a woman that is 11 years older than them. Just a stab in the dark. Now, I know for women it's different. They prefer the security. They want a good man to raise the kids. And if you're marrying somebody that's 11 years older than you, you've probably got that. You don't want a child or somebody younger than you when you're 29, 30 years old. So that's just the way of the world. And for all the women that are watching this going, you bastard, that's how it is. And I'm not going to apologise for it because it's to my advantage. Now, if we look at world leaders and the age gaps that they have, you obviously go straight to Trump. Now, there's a 24-year gap between him and Melania, but it's going the other way. Whereas Macron is going 24 years older, Trump's gone 24 years younger. Now, Trump's not getting a woman like Melania if he's a bin man in Philadelphia. I'm sorry, but that's just not happening. Now, you would think that Trump would be... That'd be it. That'd be the biggest age gap in world politics, but it's not. It's not. There are two others that sort of just bat him off to shadow. So he's not the best at this thing. The way that he brags on, he's not even the best at this thing. Now, there's a fella, Timor, in Brazil. His wife is 33 years younger than him. 33 years younger. Now, we're just thinking, if I decided to get divorced and get myself a new wife, and I decide to go Teamer style and get a wife 33 years younger than me, she'd be 20 years old. Now, the aesthetics of that, when my 20-year-old wife is in the altogether, is fantastic. I mean, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want that? It's a bit of a... Oof, on her part, I mean, seeing me in the altogether, as much as I keep myself in shape and as much as I like to look after myself, I know when I stand in front of the mirror, bolloco, there are parts of my body it's not a pretty sight. In her thighs, Jesus Christ. But yeah, a 20-year-old, obviously it's going to get frowned upon. You're not going to be having long, insightful conversations late on into a winter's night. You're just keeping her around for something good to look at when she's got no clothes on. That's it. That's it. But then again, Timor in Brazil, nope, he's not the one with the longest age gap. Now, Zuma in South Africa, he is taking the crown and also taking the piss in the same breath. Now, he's polygamic. He's got a load of wives. He's got a tribe of them. He's South African. So these fellas in South Africa, they're allowed to take many, many wives. Now, I'm not so sure how old he is, but the age gap between him and his wife is 38 years. And believe it or not, she is not 38 years older than him. Imagine that. No, she's 38 years younger than him, obviously, unless you're Macron. So she is 38 years younger than him. So if I was to marry a woman that was 38 years younger than me, yeah, I'd be in fucking trouble. I'd be in trouble. She would be 15. And let me tell you, as much as it is in vogue with rich and powerful men to have a 15-year-old in tow, that really don't float my boat. These 13, 14, 15-year-olds that all these fellas, these rich and powerful fellas, have been getting in trouble with on Epstein's Island. That's why I could never get caught out in one of these stings, because a prepubescent girl really don't do it for me. It really don't do it for me. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Give me two fire-breathing Eastern European hookers who know their way around a cock and balls. That's how you're going to catch me out. You're going to blackmail me. You're going to film me doing all sorts of business with something like that and then threaten to show my wife. You're not going to catch me with a couple of 13-year-olds. There's no way that's happening. But, yeah, somewhere from, I don't know, Transylvania, a Romanian or a Macedonian or a Moldovan, Eastern European sex worker, late 20s, early mid-30s. That's how you're going to catch me. So that's that and that's that. Don't marry women older than yourself. If you're a fella, you know, it's never going to turn out well. And when you're 100, really, if you're old enough to be still doing that sort of business, go and enjoy yourself in Southeast Asia. Don't be marrying another American woman. Anyway, there's my 2 cents. So I'll be seeing you when I see you. Adios, everybody.
Old man, look at my life. I'm a lot like you were. Old man, look at my life. I'm more, and there's so much more. Live alone in a paradise that makes me think of two. Love lost such a cost. Give me things that don't get lost, like a coin that won't get tossed, rolling home to you. Oh man, take a look at my life, I'm a lot like you. I need someone to love me the whole day through. One look in my eyes and you can tell that's true. Lullabies, look in your eyes, run around the same old town. Doesn't mean that much to mean that much to you. I've been first and last, look at how the time goes past.